They thought she was the quiet nobody they could crush, but when the truth came out, their legs shook, their faces drained, and what happened next made the whole school gasp. If you want more shocking stories with insane twists, make sure you subscribe. Lila Hensley had always walked through Westbrook High like a ghost drifting between louder, brighter lives, her books pressed to her chest, her hair hiding half her face, and her steps quiet enough to be mistaken for fear, though the truth was far more complicated, and far more dangerous, than anyone suspected. But the bullies, Mara, Jace, and the ever-grinning Tyler, never looked beyond the surface, never wondered why the shy girl always chose the back corner of every room or why teachers seemed strangely careful around her. All they saw was an easy target, someone convenient to blame when Mara's brand new cherry red car went missing from the parking lot one rainy Thursday afternoon, and as soon as they realized her keys were gone too, panic morphed quickly into cruelty, and they stormed into the cafeteria where Lila sat alone, slamming their trays on her table loud enough to silence half the room as Mara shouted, "Where's my car, freak? You think hiding behind your hair makes you innocent?" And Lila simply blinked, her gray eyes almost too calm for a girl being accused of auto theft, while whispers spread like wildfire, students rising from their seats to watch because bullies loved an audience. Jace grabbed Lila's backpack and dumped it onto the floor, scattering notebooks, pencils, a crushed protein bar, and a small black pouch that rolled toward him, and before Lila could stop him he picked it up, shaking it like it was evidence of guilt, sneering, "Probably tools to break into cars, let's see what the little thief's hiding." But the moment he loosened the drawstrings and peeked inside, his face blanched, and he dropped the pouch like it burned him, stumbling backward as Tyler leaned in curiously, only for his smirk to vanish as well when he looked inside, and Mara, impatient and furious, snatched it off the floor despite their panic. But the second her eyes met what was inside, an ID card with an emblem she recognized from a government recruitment presentation, a metallic badge, and a miniature encrypted drive, her breath hitched and her knees nearly buckled. Whispers grew louder as people leaned in, trying to see, but Lila calmly retrieved the pouch, tucked it into her bag, and stood up, her voice soft but unnervingly steady as she said, "I'm giving you one chance to walk away," which only infuriated Mara who, too embarrassed to back down in front of an audience, tried to step closer but froze as Principal Dalton suddenly appeared at the edge of the crowd, called Lila by her full name, Lila Monroe Hensley, and asked her to come with him, his tone oddly respectful. The bullies exchanged confused, panicked glances, realizing they might have crossed a line they didn't understand, and when Lila followed Dalton out of the cafeteria without a word, some students dared to trail behind at a distance, desperate to know what was going on. Inside Dalton's office the blinds were shut, and waiting for them was a tall woman in a dark suit with a lanyard that read Federal Youth Security Division, the same agency known for recruiting exceptionally gifted teens for confidential training programs, though nobody at Westbrook had ever believed the stories about Lila being one of them, chalking up her quietness to shyness rather than the intense discipline her real life demanded. The agent, a stern-faced woman named Director Rayner, asked calmly, "Did you compromise your anonymity?" And Lila shook her head, explaining that her identification pouch only fell out because someone else emptied her bag, and Dalton, sweating nervously, apologized repeatedly, saying he had no idea Lila was still active in the program after her onboarding exam. Rayner simply nodded and glanced toward the window where the bullies were hovering like frightened pigeons, whispering nervously. She tapped her pen against the desk and said, "Given what they saw, protocol requires monitoring their reaction and ensuring they do not spread details about our asset," and Lila sighed, saying she wanted to handle it herself, that a formal reprimand might escalate things. Rayner, after a long moment, allowed it but warned, "Be careful. They can be unpredictable when cornered," and Lila gave a wry, almost sad smile because she knew that better than anyone. Stepping out of the office, she found the bullies still waiting in the hall, their bravado evaporated, their faces pale and sweaty as Tyler stammered, We didn't know, Lila, we swear, we thought, you're so quiet. We didn't know who you were," and Mara's voice shook as she whispered, You're one of them." Nodding toward the office door where the government seal glimmered faintly through the frosted glass, and Lila simply walked past them without answering, but they followed her, stumbling over apologies until she stopped suddenly near the stairwell, turning to face them with a calm that was more terrifying than anger. She told them she hadn't taken the car, that she hadn't even been near the parking lot, and that if they continued spreading lies she could have them investigated, not by the school, but by the agency they'd seen, which made Tyler's legs tremble so visibly that Jace hissed at him to pull it together, though he himself was shaking like a leaf. But before Lila could continue, her phone buzzed, and when she saw the message her expression changed, subtly, but enough to send another wave of panic through the bullies, because the stolen car had been found, abandoned behind the gym with the keys still in the ignition and mud all over the driver's seat, which meant someone stole it in a hurry, someone sloppy, someone likely connected to Mara's own circle. Snapping into action, Lila walked toward the back exit with the bullies trailing behind her because now they were more afraid not to follow her, their hearts pounding as they watched her movements, quiet, precise, controlled, because this wasn't the timid girl they were used to taunting. This was someone trained to observe, to analyze, to catch what others didn't see. Outside, near the muddy path behind the gym, Lila crouched and touched the footprints, heavy, dragging, the pattern of Jace's signature custom sneakers, and when she lifted her gaze to him, he nearly fainted. He broke instantly, confessing that he'd taken Mara's keys because he wanted to scare her after an argument, that he hadn't meant to actually lose the car, and that he panicked when it rolled slightly down the slope and he couldn't stop it, so he left it there and blamed Lila because no one would believe her anyway, which made Mara shriek in outrage, lunging at him, but Lila stepped between them effortlessly, raising a hand that made both flinch like she'd drawn a weapon, though all she did was tell them she wouldn't report it if they fixed the damage, apologized publicly, and never, ever shoved their problems onto someone else again. And maybe it was fear, maybe guilt, maybe the weight of realizing how close they'd come to being charged with federal interference, but all three agreed immediately, their voices cracking, their hands trembling so badly that Mara actually wet herself slightly, trying desperately to hide the spreading stain but failing as Tyler backed away in horror. While students gathering at the doorway gasped, some laughing, some utterly shocked. Lila didn't laugh, didn't gloat, didn't even smile. She simply turned and walked back toward the school building with the calm, unbothered stride of someone who had survived battles much larger than teenage cruelty, and as the bullies scrambled to hide their humiliation, she allowed herself the smallest exhale of relief because maintaining her cover was getting harder every week, and maybe, she thought, being quiet wasn't a shield anymore but a choice she could finally let go of. Inside, rumors swirled wildly, but this time they weren't shaped by malice, they were shaped by awe, because suddenly everyone wanted to know who Lila really was, what she could do, what the bullies had seen that made them so terrified. But Lila just slipped into her next class, opened her notebook, and pretended nothing had happened as the sun broke through the clouds outside, casting a faint glow on her desk like a silent reminder that power didn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispered.